don't want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have when I say that this has been the biggest adjustment of my life. Like understanding the way my life operates now, being who I am, and the things that I've been so fortunate to make. It comes with so much ground that I never thought I would be able to cover, and that people think I'm doing poorly and other people think I'm doing gracefully, and I don't think I'm doing it at all.
The content in this video is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. Our goal is to report on public conversations, provide context, and, where applicable, clarify misinformation and debunk false claims. We strive for ethical and responsible reporting by presenting a balanced perspective, verifying information wherever possible, and citing all relevant sources, including articles, tweets, Rachel Zegler stood behind the curtain at the London Palladium, heart pounding not from nerves, but from a sinking dread she couldn't shake. The applause she used to crave was nowhere to be heard. The vast, echoing emptiness of the 2,286-seat theater didn't just reflect poor ticket sales, it screamed rejection. Not just of a show, not just of a performance, but of her. This wasn't Hollywood. There were no cameras.
To say, I don't know the ins and outs of the payment for these actors. To be honest, there is not a single show, a movie, or anything that I've seen really in the last 5 years that made me think these people need to be paid more. I'm sorry, but I can tell you that I wouldn't have felt that way had they not come forward and complained about it. And that's it.
Just really, why are you even worried about yourself getting paid when I thought this was about standing up for the little guy, advocating for the actors who don't get the A-list castings and aren't having their faces put on billboards but still deserve to be paid appropriately, and instead it's like it's about you in the dress. It's just not a good look.
Angles to hide behind, no producers to shift the blame to, no marketing campaign to spin mediocrity into gold. This was live, raw, real. And the rows upon rows of empty red velvet chairs, they were unforgiving. She had imagined this moment differently. After all, Evita was supposed to be her triumphant return, a chance to silence the critics, to showcase her vocal range, to rebrand herself from the face of the Snow White disaster to a legitimate star with Broadway-caliber chops. But instead, she found herself grappling with a question that cut deeper than any bad review ever could. What happens when no one shows up?
Film industry, when you are an actor, when you sign one of these contracts in the entertainment industry, I think a lot of people on the outside think that if you are somebody who has a lot of publicity around you and your name is attached to a project, that means that you have a ton of control or a ton of intel, but usually that is not the case. Unless you are Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively with all of their films apparently, or Margot Robbie in Barbie and you are also an executive producer. As an actor, you don't get to dictate anything. You don't get to dictate if a film actually happens. You don't get to dictate when it is shot, how it is shot, if you can ever speak about it to the public. You are simply just there to show up and say your lines and look the way they want you to look. That is our job, and that was my job on this production. So again, that's really all I can say.
It wasn't always like this. Just a few years ago, Rachel Zegler had the kind of rise actors dream of. She went from a relatively unknown YouTuber doing covers in her bedroom to starring in Steven Spielberg's remake of West Side Story. That kind of trajectory is so rare it almost seems mythical. Chosen by one of Hollywood's most respected directors, handed the spotlight, given the kind of opportunity most spend decades chasing. And to her credit, she didn't fumble it, at least not at first. Her performance was praised. She won a Golden Globe. The industry buzzed with excitement. She was pegged as the next big thing, and Disney, always eager to crown a new princess, quickly cast her as Snow White. On paper, it made sense. Young, talented, diverse, a new face for a new era. But that's where the fairy tale started to fracture. From the moment she opened her mouth during Snow White's press cycle, something changed. What should have been a moment of celebration quickly soured. Rachel didn't just promote the movie, she deconstructed it, dismissed it, and, in the eyes of many, disrespected the legacy it stood on, calling the original prince a stalker, critiquing the film's weird romance.
Things do not look good for Rachel Zegler and her acting career as we know it today. What do you think's gonna happen, girl? You are sending tweets, making posts, saying these things at events. You had a character to play. I'm sorry, but Dividing people and making comments about half of our nation is not going to get people in the movie theaters to support
romantic premise and positioning her version of the story as a feminist overhaul rather than a retelling. It didn't sit well. Not with fans, not with families, not with the generations who grew up on the classic. And most critically, not with the general public who saw a young starlet seemingly biting the hand that fed her. It wasn't just a bad look, it was career-altering. Because here's the truth, Hollywood never wants to admit. People don't buy into movies. They buy into stars, into stories, into connections. And when that connection is broken, when the person on the poster starts sounding like they despise the story they're selling, the audience doesn't just walk away from the project. They walk away from the performer. That's what happened with Rachel. Snow White hadn't even hit theaters, and already the tide had turned. Memes flooded Twitter. YouTube commentators dissected every soundbite. TikTok videos mocked her interviews. And just like that, the girl who had once been praised for her vocal prowess and breakout charm was now the face of what many called woke Hollywood gone wrong. So when the Snow White project tanked, both critically and commercially, it didn't feel like an isolated flop. It felt like a referendum, not just on Disney's strategy, not just on Rachel's performance, but on everything she represented. The timing couldn't have been worse. The backlash so intense that Disney in
Evita, it is a challenging part to play, and I don't think she has the temerity, the stamina, you pick a word here, in order to pull it off going, every single day that the theater is open.
I'm a very talented, capable individual. I'm here for a reason. I can do it.
a rare move, quietly shelved several upcoming remakes, including a modernized version of Tangled that was rumored to follow a similar progressive blueprint. In the aftermath, Rachel's name became radioactive. And yet, she still had one card left to play: live theater. Evita. For the uninitiated, Evita is no ordinary role. It's demanding, it's iconic. It requires vocal control, emotional range, and commanding stage presence. It's not a vanity project, it's a proving ground. So, in theory, if Rachel could pull it off, if she could wow live audiences and critics alike, she might reclaim her narrative, rebuild her reputation, prove that beneath the headlines and controversy, she was still a serious performer. But theater isn't like film. There are no second takes. There's no CGI to mask a shaky note. No marketing to hide a half-empty venue. And that's exactly what she was facing, a room that was only a quarter full on a good night. Ticket sales were abysmal. Even at rock-bottom prices, entire sections went unsold. Some seats dropped to under €30, a shocking price for a West End production backed by names like Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice. And still, the masses stayed away.
The whole crying thing. It only seems genuine when Holly does it, but with Rachel it seems like she's acting. Not long ago, this is what she was saying. See, this is the reason people don't buy it. Don't get me wrong, she has a fan base, she has a following, she has people defending her, as she should have. But the way this damage control tour is becoming a bunch of statements that she should have made at the start, it all just makes her look.
What made it worse was the optics. At the same time that Rachel was struggling to fill even a third of the Palladium's seats, TikTok was flooded with clips from the Met Gala. One video showed her walking the carpet to cheers and camera flashes, with fans in the comments praising her style and confidence. Meanwhile, Gal Gadot, who had committed none of the same PR blunders, was being inexplicably roasted. It was as if the internet had divorced itself from reality. In the real world, Rachel's name couldn't sell a single row of tickets. Online, she was still being treated like an A-lister. The disconnect was surreal, and for Rachel, probably devastating, because this wasn't just a rough opening week. It wasn't a slow rollout. This was an ongoing trend. Weeks passed, then months, and yet the theater remained half-empty, night after night. Fan forums started to speculate. Were the producers inflating numbers? Was the $4 million in pre-sales figure just PR spin? Reddit threads dissected the ticketing site's backend, pulling screenshots, tracking availability. And the evidence was damning. Even for prime weekend slots, front row seats were wide open. How could that
been labeled a PR nightmare? And we can see why. The Walt Disney Company seems to be trying to keep her totally hidden, as we haven't seen any interviews regarding Snow White since the controversies surfaced. Of course, people now are just waiting for her next slip-up. What other outrageous thing will she say? But I have a suspicion that Zegler is getting some serious brainwashing media training, so she can keep saying the same
be if millions had already been spent on advance bookings? The truth? It didn't matter. Because even if the producers had cooked the numbers, the seats themselves didn't lie. The photos didn't lie. The ambiance didn't lie. A theater that was supposed to be buzzing with energy was instead shrouded in awkward silence, the kind that makes actors rethink their entire career mid-monologue. And Rachel, for all her talent, was stuck performing to ghosts. Her team tried to spin it. Press releases cited glowing reviews. Snippets of standing ovations were uploaded to social media, carefully framed to exclude the empty balconies and deserted rows. But it wasn't enough. The narrative had already formed. Rachel Zegler, once the future of Disney, was now the lead in a stage production that no one wanted to see. The worst part? She didn't see.
I saw this video that was like, Rachel Zegler doesn't have a single movie role lined up after Snow White. Rachel Zegler is making her West End debut in the biggest leading role in a musical of all time. Like, she's playing Ava Perón in a Jamie Lloyd production of Evita. I promise y'all don't need to be worrying about her career like that.
Seemed to understand why. In interviews, her tone hadn't softened, her posture hadn't shifted. There was no real sign of humility, no hint of a rebrand. She still carried herself with the air of someone who believed the audience was wrong, not her. And that disconnect between public perception and personal belief only made things worse. Because in the world of live performance, there's no room for ego. You have to meet the audience where they are. You have to earn every clap, every standing ovation. And when the applause is missing, you have to ask yourself why. Not blame the crowd for not clapping louder. That's the core issue with Rachel's current trajectory. It's not about whether she can sing. It's not about whether she's woke or canceled or misunderstood. It's about whether she's willing to listen, willing to learn, willing to connect, because charisma can't be faked, authenticity can't be forced, and audiences can smell entitlement a mile away. Rachel may have the tools, she may have the training, but if she doesn't have the humility to rebuild trust, none of it matters. Not in Hollywood, and certainly not in theater, where the spotlight is as cold as it is bright. Even worse, her fallout isn't just hers anymore. The entire Snow White project is now marred by her reputation. Every actor, every crew member, every dollar spent, it's all been tainted by the public perception of one person's attitude, and that's a heavy weight to carry. Studios are feeling it. Execs who once championed her are now going radio silent. Spielberg, who reportedly endorsed her for Snow White, hasn't said a word since the backlash. Disney has distanced itself. Even her co-stars are allegedly frustrated. Insider leaks suggest Gal Gadot was less than thrilled with the on-set energy. No names were mentioned, but fans didn't need them. The implication was clear. And through it all, Rachel remains the center of the storm. Not because she wants to be, but because her image, her comments, her tone became the story. More than the performance, more than the script, more than the art.